measures for formal approval by the Senate under Article 155 of the Spanish Constitution. It's never been invoked before. The move came after the Catalan leader, Carles Puigdemont, threatened to get the regional parliament to ratify independence if Madrid refused to talk about the crisis. Chinese state media says the country's leader, Xi Jinping, has been given his own political theory, which would entrench his position at the top of the ruling Communist Party. The state-run news agency Xinhua has quoted other senior leaders as saying the president's ideas would be known as Xi Jinping thought. China says more than 1 in 10 senior leaders has been investigated for corruption over the last 5 years. State media says 43 full and backup members of the governing Communist Party's Central Committee have been accused. European Union leaders are arriving for a summit in Brussels, at which they'll hear the British Prime Minister Theresa May set out her latest thoughts about Britain's withdrawal from the EU. She's not expected to go beyond the outline proposals she made in Florence last month. Russian scientists have warned of grave threats to the ecology of Baikal, the Siberian lake that contains more fresh water than any other in the world. The main dangers are the steep decline in the omul fish, which is unique to Baikal and a local delicacy, the rapid growth of putrid algae, and the death of mollusks, crustaceans and sponges. One of the most enduring stars of French cinema, the actress Danielle Darrieux, has died at the age of 100 after a career spanning 8 decades. Starting at the age of 14, Danielle Darrieux played opposite some of the biggest names of the day, both in France and Hollywood. BBC News.
For this week's assignment on the BBC World Service, we're on the Tanzanian island of Zanzibar. What are the socks for? Why are you putting socks on your feet?
We need to cover ourselves because when you are open, the evil spirit is easier to get in you. When you cover yourself, it's not possible for the evil spirit to get in.
In a damp, dilapidated hall, a throng of patients gather, desperately seeking a way to rid themselves of the evil spirits they believe have possessed their minds. You're going to get hot in those socks.
No, it's not hot because the power of God, you don't feel hot.
This treatment's really important to you, isn't it?
It's really important. Yeah, it's very important. I believe it 100%. You get cured.
This is Ashura, an affable, pious lady, her hands folded modestly in front of her. She has travelled over 7,000 kilometres from her home in Britain to find relief from acute mental suffering.
I had anxiety and depression and I'm using tablets in London, but when I come in this place, I feel like I don't need tablets.
So are you more convinced that traditional medicine like this or than healing?
Effective. Very, very effective.
More so than medication in the West?
Yeah.
She's referring to a remarkable form of psychological therapy trusted by swathes of the population here in predominantly Muslim Zanzibar. The age-old spiritual practice of exorcism. But as we'll see, procedures like this pose a significant risk to a public health system already struggling against high levels of substance abuse. I'm Nicola Kelly, and for this week's assignment, I'm exploring a murky underbelly of sorcery and stimulants that's left thousands of vulnerable people on the cusp of mental collapse. And a warning, you may find some of the content distressing. As the congregational chanting picks up pace, Ashura and I are beckoned forward by the sheikh, a chiselled, brooding young man. His flock of followers, primarily teenage girls, watch his every step hawkishly, vibrant headscarves billowing under the only fan in the room. A hush descends as the sheikh gets into character, hands raised skyward, eyes squeezed shut. He begins steady, circular recitations, gently at first, volume steadily increasing. Within moments, the energy of the room reaches boiling point. That's when it gets really disturbing. frenzied, frantic, surging forward like a wave rising and crashing. Young girls and their mothers are thrown against walls. Others are clawing at the floor, mouths distended, tiny bodies convulsing. The girl next to me now is about 15 years old, and she's come forward from the very back of the room towards the sheikh and is reaching out for him and thrashing around on the floor with her fists clenched, attempting to beat the spirit out of her and shouting at it. Finally, after an electrifying 10-minute performance, he reduces the temperature of the group to a simmer. The sheikh, panting, hand to chest, makes his way towards Ashura and me hovering in the wings. How do you feel now? That looked exhausting.
Nafanya hii kazi nikimaliza hapa naingia ndani namsikiliza mmoja mmoja matatizo yake.
It's very tiring, but people have faith in me. They depend on me, so they can get well. Most of the people here are possessed by spirits that have affected their mental health. Later, I'll attend them one by one and go to people's houses to offer prayers. I'm so busy. Sometimes I don't sleep at all.
How did you learn how to exercise these spirits?
Sijasoma, imekuja automatic kutoka na umri wa miaka 6.
I didn't learn. It came to me automatically when I was 6 years old, from God.
With that, he sweeps off through the crowd, placing a hand on the head of his loyal followers in the front row. An exhilarated Ashura turns to me, pats my arm reassuringly, and restates her ardent belief.
You get a side effect with the tablets, but when you get these things, it's natural, spiritual and natural, so it's healed. Yeah, very cured.
So are you hopeful that after this treatment today you'll return to London cured?
Yeah, very much, very much.
Then she follows the sheikh humbly, head to the ground and out of view. Ashura will now have her feet bathed in seawater, and further prayers will be read to her. This, she says devoutly, like the ebb and flow of the tide, will flood the evil spirit from her mind.
There are very few patients who haven't seen traditional healers before. Almost everybody sees them. They are the first line because of our own beliefs. If you say a jinn or a spirit is the cause of this, it's very easy for them to accept that.
This is Dr. Abdul Wakil Idris, Zanzibar's first psychiatrist, and the man responsible for the aftermath when spiritual healing doesn't work. He shows me around the wards of the island's one mental hospital, Kidongo Chikundu. Which ward are we heading into now?
Or two, the closed ward. For men.
The acutely psychotic patients.
And here it's a bit chaotic sometimes.
Across the yard is the female ward, or Ward 1. Many of the patients have been here for several months with no noticeable sign of improvement, like 30-year-old Fatma. That's not her real name. We've changed it to protect her identity.
Hi. Good morning.
We're high-fiving.
What is your name?
I'm Nicola. Fatma has a light-hearted, playful way about her, proudly showing off her new hot pink dress and smooth, freshly shaved head. Ambitious, well-educated and a mother to 2 children, her future looked bright. That is, until she developed hypomania, a condition she has suffered from for several years. And how do you feel today?
I'm happy. I'm very happy.
She's HIV positive. She's psychotic. I understand that the first child is okay. They're not sure about the second child.
This is difficult, emotionally challenging work, no?
It is. But after some time to us, it becomes the normal work. We're used to it. We lose sleep sometimes if you find a seriously sick person, or they get hurt sometimes. They hurt each other.
They hurt each other?
Yeah, sometimes they hurt each other.
Oh, we missed each other's hands. There we go.
Goodbye.
When she first became unwell, Fatma visited several spiritual healers, seeking respite from mental torment. That's when her condition steadily worsened. Now she suffers alone in the acute wards.
Yeah.
Do you miss your babies?
Yeah, I miss you. Mwah, mwah. I miss you, your babies.
Oh.
Also, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
But while faith-based practices delay treatment, they are not the cause of the problem. At the heart of this crisis is a more secular phenomenon: drugs. Let's go and see your stash. At the district police station's anti-drugs unit, I meet the chief inspector, Omar. He and his team have just returned from a raid of fishermen's dhow boats and are busily labelling envelopes of heroin and cannabis.
The narcotic drugs are within this envelope. So this contains drugs which has been already taken for analysis.
What drugs have you got in that envelope?
This is heroin.
Heroin, okay. Zanzibar lies off the coast of East Africa. According to the UN's Office for Drugs and Crime, in the last 5 years, more than 400 kilograms of narcotics have been seized from boats arriving on its shores.
We have arresting mostly these people who are selling. We are not in a position till now to arrest those people who are the dealers.
Drug abuse is fueling a mental health crisis. More than 12,000 people on this tiny island now rely on long-term antipsychotic medicine. And that only accounts for those living in the urban areas. There may be many more in hard-to-reach communities.
These drugs affect mind. They have been affected mentally. So they act the way those people of unsound mind act. They are acting abnormally. They are always dressing the way not dressed by anyone, roughly. They have no time to take a bath, even to brush the teeth. They are just roaming about the street. You see, sometimes it goes too far.
This is the case for thousands of Zanzibar's most vulnerable. But the problem is that drug users are often treated inappropriately. They're routinely viewed as psychotic and sent to the mental hospital for treatment.
Before I came here, I went to mental hospital because there is no option.
Kasim Nuni is a recovering substance abuser with a naturally sunny outlook. It's only when we begin discussing his experiences at the mental hospital that his face clouds over.
If you are drug addicts, the only option was they take you to the mental hospital. I would pray they could take me to jail rather than the mental hospital. Yeah, those people are sick mentally. I was not sick. I had a drug problem.
And it doesn't end there. Despite their diagnosis, Kasim tells me that both drug users and psychotic patients alike receive a remedy known as CPZ, used in Zanzibar as a one-size-fits-all treatment.
When you took CPZ, you come like a zombie, seizing too much. Like you don't know what you're doing, like you lose your mind. Some of us, we were experiencing like the time they come out and people start to screaming. I thought I would go crazy. That is why I was looking for a way out to jump the wall.
CPZ, or chlorpromazine to give it its full name, is among the first generation of antipsychotic medicines. Though many countries prefer to prescribe other treatments, Zanzibar continues to rely heavily on it, in large part because access to other medicines is limited.
This one, I know she for a long time. The condition now is not good. Is still sick.
Back at the mental hospital, coordinator Suleiman Ali is doing the rounds. I follow him as he seeks out Fatma to give her the daily dosage of CPZ. Do you think that CPZ is really working?
We said chlorpromazine is the drug of the first generation. Now many of the countries, they already leave them and they are complaining of many side effects. It depends to problem of prescription. You are supposed to make sure the dose which the patient is taking is satisfactory. Otherwise, many of the psychotic medications, they may cause a problem like that. So it's never working very well.
Rather than relying on prescription medication, many Zanzibaris choose to visit traditional healers, typically village leaders experienced in herbal medicines. There are over 5,000 of them in Zanzibar, of which only 200 are fully licensed, according to the latest figures from the Ministry of Health. Suleiman takes me to meet some of them the next day in Kivunge, a rural village on the northern tip of the island. We make our way along a coral-coloured track to the home of somebody we'll call Mohammed. Can you show me where you stay when you have a seizure?
When he is getting disturbed from seizures, sometimes he's confused, so running away. After collecting him, he's coming back from his room.
Mohammed is recovering inside the house following a series of epileptic seizures. I'm told he's also been displaying signs of mania. Suleiman explains that his mother encloses him in a dark room when he's feeling unwell and indicates the 8 padlocks on the door. Do you feel the best approach is to lock him in this room?
He said it is a kind of control in order to make sure he becoming safe.
Stigmatization surrounding mental illness is rife in Zanzibar, where those most in need are feared and therefore controlled rather than cared for. And Suleiman explains it's the traditional healers that are their last hope.
We are said to the traditional healer that you are not able to treat the psychotic patient. But because you are in financial issues, then you take the patient.
Do you think that they are doing harm to some of the patients with psychotic illnesses?
They are causing harm because they are waiting the patient in proper management. They are supposed to be managed early as possible, so they are delaying the treatment. But also sometimes they are harming some of them, they are beating them, so they are managing them in a cruel way. You may close the room, single room with empty, nothing inside for a long time. So they are taking patients in force.
Mambo.